You are listening to Despair by Michael Brockbank. Episode 13. The large man let out a low growl as he began to shapeshift. Jordan has dealt with this kind of creature before, hence part of the reason why his axes were crafted of silver. Having the young woman so close, though, made the hunter uneasy about fighting the beast. This was not a fight he wanted at this moment in time. Charging the half-man, half-wolf creature, Jordan leapt up and planted both feet into its chest. The blow sent the werewolf back and through the window with a loud crash. Getting back up to his feet, Jordan quickly put away one of his axes and grabbed the girl's hand. He rushed into his room, picked up his rucksack, and thrust it into her hands. She was bewildered as to what just transpired, but felt obliged to hold his belongings. Jordan could hear the creature rushing back into the inn, crashing through tables and chairs down below. Realizing he wasn't going to slip her past the werewolf, he picked up a chair which stood in the corner of his room. Flinging the chair out the window, he began to usher her towards it. "What are you doing?" she asked, trying to contain the sheer amount of fear she felt. "We're going out the window. Slide down the awning and jump down." "What if I break something?" she asked, just shy of going out the window. From the staircase, the creature let out another growl, this one of utter anger. "That's something coming up here to break a lot of things. Now go," Jordan replied, pushing her out the broken window. The young woman immediately lost her footing, slid down the wooden awning and onto the dense, muddy road below with a loud splatter. The remnants of the other window laid next to her with the massive indentation the creature's body had made. She quickly got to her feet and ran to the other side of the road, looking back at the window, waiting for the man to follow. Just as Jordan picked up his bow, the werewolf entered the room. It lunged at him, sending both of them through the broken window and onto the muddy road below. Jordan was the first to his feet and kicked the creature in the neck, causing it to roll to one side. As the werewolf stood, it lunged with a clawed hand for the hunter's throat. Jordan batted the claw away with the bow while bringing the axe up with the other hand. The blade sliced deep into the creature's face, causing a gaping wound just below its right eye. The creature stumbled back, holding on to the side of its face. The look in its eyes changed from one of anger to one of fear. Its prey was holding a weapon that could hurt it. Pulling its hand away from its face, the werewolf, now standing on two legs, paced around the hunter. The overcoat, now tied across its body, slid through the mud by the beast's feet. It appeared to be studying Jordan, possibly trying to anticipate his next move. "This is not going to end well for you, Wolfie," Jordan advised, taking a defensive stance. As the two circled each other in the middle of the road, the hunter dropped his bow and slowly withdrew the second axe from his belt. Jordan noted that the look in the werewolf's eyes was that of someone who knew the battle was not going to be won that day. Turning its head to let out a quick growl towards the young woman, the creature quickly fled with supernatural speed into the tree line, just a short distance behind the inn. If it wasn't for the young woman holding his things, which she surely would have taken off with and sold, the hunter would have pursued. Instead, he drew in a deep breath, replaced the axes onto his belt, and bent over to pick up his bow. Looking back towards the young woman, he could see she was petrified with fear. This was not turning out to be a very good week. "Are you all right?" he asked, walking towards her. She had trembled to the point of dropping her dagger and was barely holding onto his rucksack. Tears welled up in her eyes as she blankly stared at the hunter. She began to muster up a bit of composure. "What if it had been in there when I was searching?" she asked. Jordan could tell from the crackle in her voice that she was barely keeping her sanity together. "It would have eaten you. Or worse." "What could be worse than being eaten?" she asked with a horrified look on her face. Jordan stopped in front of her and grabbed his rucksack. His eyes never left hers, as if to tell the young woman that she didn't want to know. Slinging the strap of the bag over his shoulder, he turned to walk back towards the forest. "You'd best hurry home. No telling how long it'll stay away," Jordan called out to her as he walked off. "Wait, you're not leaving me out here, are you?" she asked, marching up behind him. "Go home, little girl. It's not safe out here." "Wait." She ran around and stood in his path. "Please. I don't want to be eaten." "Then go home," Jordan replied, stepping around her to continue his walk. "I don't have anywhere to go," she called out. Jordan stopped his trek through the mud and looked up. Dense clouds began to roll into the sky above and threatened yet another rainstorm. Letting out a sigh, he turned and walked back to the young woman. She had tears streaming down her cheeks as she stifled any sound of crying. He stared at her for a few moments, contemplating whether she could be trusted to follow him. She looked up at him, lower lip quivering as she attempted to hold back the emotions. "What do you mean you don't have anywhere to go?" he asked softly. The day's events were clearly more than she could handle. "My parents were killed some time ago. I've been living on my own ever since," she replied, looking down at her absurdly oversized attire. He couldn't just leave her out here with no one. If the werewolf came back, it would surely have itself a snack, and they were quite a walk from the nearest town. He let out another deep sigh. "The cart stays here," he said, turning to walk towards the forest again. "Does that mean I can come with you?" "Grab your dagger," he said back to her. The young woman quickly ran back to where she had been standing and picked up her weapon. Looking back at the cart, she wondered how much coin she could have made by selling all that she found. Did she really want to travel with this stranger? "It won't matter if it eats you," Jordan called back as he was getting further away. Annoyed that she had to leave her loot behind, she sheathed her weapon and ran to catch up with her new companion. "I'm Charlotte, by the way," she said, walking up beside the hunter. He looked down at her and observed how her mood had drastically changed. She was no longer stricken with fear and appeared more comfortable in his presence. "My name is Jordan," he replied, looking back towards the nearing tree line. "Jordan, you wouldn't happen to have anything to eat, would you?" With the village empty and no one to pay him for his work, Jordan felt compelled to return to the manor. He had unanswered questions that were gnawing at him. For one thing, he wanted to know why the rotted building was important to his captors from before. What was the book the skeleton was reading, and why was it in such a hurry? Besides, the hunter felt the manor would be a good place to rest while deciding his next steps. As he pondered recent events, Jordan looked at Charlotte, who was doing her best to keep up with his steady pace through the forest. Between fighting the dead and then wrestling around with a were-creature, she provided a far more pleasant environment than what he had experienced recently. By the time the two arrived at the manor, the sky grew dark. Droplets of water began to fall, though not as much as the last rainstorm. Jordan had managed to start a fire in the fireplace, which provided enough light to make out the true dilapidated nature of the manor. The last time he was in this room, he was more focused on other things. This time, he planned on searching the building from top to bottom. There had to be an indication of some kind as to why the skeleton was here and why the dead surrounded the building. Whatever its secrets, Jordan was determined to discover them.